This is a grade 2 storeroom function lever from PLS. It's available from lockpeddler.com, and as you can see, it is key operated from the outside. This outside lever will always remain locked unless you use a key, so you'll never actually depress this lever and get this latch to go back. That's what storeroom function basically means. It doesn't give you the option of ever leaving this particular lock unlocked. You can always, of course, egress. You can always exit by depressing the inside lever, but it will always be locked unless you use a key. Now, if you purchase one of these from lockpeddler.com, you're going to need to know how to remove one and, of course, install one. So I'm going to show you step by step how to take one off and put one back on. Alright, we'll start with step 1. There's a little hole right here at the side of the lever, and there's a little retainer in there. You have to push this retainer in order to pull this lever off. Just simply push in on that retainer and the lever will come right off in your hand. Now we'll move to step 2. On just about any commercial lever, all you have to do in order to remove this outside rose or bevel is to just simply turn it counterclockwise and then pull right off. Sometimes it does take a little bit of torquing, but they just about all remove the same way. We'll move on to step 3. Step 3 is pretty simple. This is actually called a clock spring ring. In order to get this off, you have to remove it with 2 screws. So we're going to do that real fast. I use a screw gun for this, but you can use, of course, any standard household screwdriver. It's just a simple Phillips head. Then you just take that apart and set it aside. Now we'll move on to the next step. Step 4, we're going to remove this ring, which holds the lock on the door, and it's held on by 2 screws, just at the top and the bottom. So we're going to reverse these 2 screws. And we'll just set this ring aside. We'll move on to step 5. Step 5 is very simple. All you're going to do is go to the outside of the lever, and you're going to rock back and forth and pull. And you're going to kind of rock it back and forth, or in a circular motion, it'll just come right out in your hand. And you have uninstalled your lever. One last step, we're going to remove this latch. 2 screws again. And that is the uninstall of this lock. Now I'll show you how to reinstall it. Now the first step of reinstallation, we're going to actually install our latch. This is a 2 3/4 back set latch. And you need to determine which direction the latch is going to face. Of course, if the door is going to be closing that way, you need to have the latch facing that direction. And if it's closing this way, you want to have it, of course, facing that direction. Now, when I say 2 3/4 back set, that basically is the back set from the edge of the door to the center of this hole here. Now, they do make these in a residential back set, which is 2 3/8, but this particular one is 2 3/4. This just simply installs, of course, with 2 screws, and we'll do that real fast. And that's step 1. We'll move on to step 2. Okay, for step 2, you'll notice that the PLS product line comes with standard through bolts, these are the actual nuts that accept the bolts that go through the door. And on this particular installation, you can see that we've already pre-drilled to actually install with the through bolts. But I'm going to show you the easier installation, or the quicker installation that a lot of people tend to use. Now keep in mind that if you do use the through bolts, the lock tends to last a lot longer and take a lot more abuse. But if you're just looking to replace one for another and just get it on the door fast and quick and easy without having to drill any holes, then you just simply finger loosen these and they come right off just like that. And now you're ready to install this into the door, or in this case, our display. So we'll move on to step 3. Now for step 3, you want to be very aware of this little lip right here, this one up top, and this one here and here. And this middle plunger actually controls the pullback of your latch. Now when you slide the lock in from the opposite side of the door, you want to look into the little window right here and make sure that everything is going to line up correctly. When you're placing it into a wood door, you want to kind of rock the lock back and forth and then just press it into place. And you want to test for operation on the inside before you go any further, because the outside lever will not work because it is a storeroom function lever and it operates only with key on the outside. Now we'll move on to our next step. For step 4, we're going to install our installation ring right here, and this holds the lever in place on the door. It installs with 2 screws, and again I'm going to use a drill driver for this. So there's the top, here's the bottom, and now we'll move on to step 5. Now you'll notice that when I removed this lock, we were using the through bolt installation, which involved these 2 very long screws. We're going to dump those out and we're going to use our shorter screw installation. Now this particular piece is called the clock ring spring, and this just fits over the spindle just like that. And make sure that this particular piece right here is facing towards the lever itself. That controls the return of your lever. So when you depress the lever, it's going to spring back. And since we're not using the through bolt installation, we're going to use the 2 small screws that came with this lock. One at the bottom and one at the top. That's the bottom one. And there's the top one. Now if you don't already have holes previously drilled for a through bolt installation, this is still a perfectly good installation. And this lock will stay on a door very well. But as I stated before, through bolts do hold a lock slightly better on the door. So if you have them, I would always recommend using them, but this is a lot quicker. Step 6 is pretty simple. As you can see here, there's a little channel, and there's a couple little dimples right there. And those little depressions are going to keep this bevel plate or rose in place. This just slides on. Just line up this little dimple here with that valley, and you're going to give it a little twist, and that will stay in place. We'll move on to our next step. Now for step 7, this is going to be pretty simple. You have a little hole right here, and you want to line that up with this little retainer. So just simply slide it onto your spindle, give it a push, and just like that, it's installed. And you want to make sure that everything's working at this point. So give it a good quick test, and that is the PLS Grade 2 Storeroom Function Lever, available from lockpeddler.com. So if you should have any storerooms or any doors that you want to have automatically locked behind each individual, this is the lock for you.